Hi everyone. We will introduce ourselves in a minute, but I want to start today by telling you a story. In 2015, I was called to a meeting with my boss. My colleagues were brought in as well. And at this point, I'd been working in politics for about 6 years. I'd been working in Canberra in Parliament House as a media advisor to a minister. And from the second I walked into this meeting, I knew it was not going to be a good meeting. He said to me and my colleagues, "I'm about to resign, and that means you are all going to lose your jobs." I was pretty emotional at this point because I had given that job my all for 6 years. You know, we worked 14-plus-hour days. It was our entire life working in politics. And I realised in that moment that I didn't have as much control of my career as I thought I did. By no fault of my own, I had lost my job, a job that I absolutely loved. I then set about to think, okay, what am I going to do next? I started applying for other opportunities, and fortunately, I'd met one recruiter while I was working in politics, and she was recruiting for a management position at a high-profile organisation in South Australia, and I eventually got that job. But the whole experience taught me that you can't rely on performance alone in the future of work. To remain competitive, it's not enough to just put your head down, bum up, and work really hard. It wasn't enough for me. I was really good at my job. I'm not ashamed to say it. I worked really hard. It was just not enough. I realised then that I was relying on performance and luck, and I had been essentially playing career roulette, putting my career in someone else's hands, hitching myself to his wagon, which plenty of us do in an organisation, and working really hard. But it wasn't enough. I needed to do more if I wanted to take control of my career. This was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. I realised that being good at what you do is different from being well known for what you do. Here I am working in politics there with former Prime Minister John Howard. And then here I am a couple of years later speaking at a national conference in Perth to hundreds of people, telling them this very story and delivering them this message. Being good at what you do is different from being well known for what you do.
We have it fairly well ingrained in us to perform highly. We think that we're going to put our heads down, our bums up, and work really hard and get really great at what we do. And that's how we're going to get ahead. And you can see how Amy kind of used that example in her own career and her own life. Yes, it's important to be great at what we do, but culturally that's ingrained. I know that people that are attracted to this kind of work, the work that we do, they're already great. But here's some research by Harvey J. Coleman in his book, Empowering Yourself, Organizational Game Revealed, that is telling us that performance only counts for 10%. What matters is how people perceive your work. People need to know that you're good at your work. It's not enough just to be good and put your head down and wait for that tap on your shoulder. 30% is about image and how you're portrayed externally. And 60% is about exposure. It's about being seen. And this is what we're talking to you about today, because we know that it's not natural for us to want to pop our heads above the parapet. We know that it's not natural for us to put ourselves out there with fear of being found out, with fear of being exposed, with fear of being excluded from the group. But we can see from this research that it's really important and increasingly important that we are recognised for our expertise.
Because what happened to me is pretty common. You know, an organisation can decide to change the organisational structure. They can decide a position is no longer relevant. You know, you might find yourself in a global pandemic and perhaps the worst jobs market I've ever been in. So it's not enough just to rely on your performance these days. You really need to be thinking about exposure and your image, what people are saying about you and how they're perceiving you. We're Tamsin and Amy, and we are from The Edge. We understand and we know from all the research that leadership skills and communication skills, the ability to be able to lead effectively and communicate effectively, are going to be really important competitive advantages in the future of work. So we launched our consulting agency, The Edge, last year, and we work with everyone from major Australian banks to not-for-profit leaders, helping them lead with confidence, influence, and communicate with impact. Thank you for joining our webinar today.
Thanks so much for being here.
The reality is we are all presented with countless opportunities daily to influence the way we are perceived in the external market. That's the thing I hadn't done very well when I was working in politics. I hadn't given much thought to how I was being perceived externally. The question is, are you taking advantage of those opportunities that are already available to you? That's not a rhetorical question. We actually want to find out. We're going to play a bit of a game. If you've been to any of the Edge's workshops, you may have done this before, but it's a really fun way to see where you are at in terms of your building influence journey. So I'm going to read out 13 different ways you can be influencing the external market, influencing the way people perceive you. I want you to write down whether you do these 13 things, the point at which you stop. So you might get 3 out of 13. Whatever is next is the next part of your journey, the next thing we want you to add to your to-do list, a takeaway, an action from today's session. Okay, and keep track because we want everyone to add in the comments how many they get out of 13.
Normally we get everyone to stand up and then sit down when you opt out. So our version of that today is just to pop a comment into the comment section when you're out of the game.
So the first one, let's start off a bit easier. The first one is I attend networking events and I introduce myself to new people who may be able to open doors for me. So do you just go to networking events and you chat to someone from work and you have a nice wine and then you head home? Or do you use this as an opportunity to build your profile and become known for your expertise? Hopefully everyone is going to networking events and introducing themselves to new people and they're still with us.
If you were to ask people in your professional network, they would agree that it's clear what you do and you are known for your expertise.
So if you work in marketing, do people know that you are a marketing manager? Is it clear what you do? Have you got your LinkedIn headline updated? Or are you hiding what you do under a bushel? Number 3, not only do I post on social media in a professional capacity, I share my point of view on these platforms. So it's not enough to just be on LinkedIn. We know that 90% of LinkedIn users are lurkers. They just kind of consume other people's content and sit on the sidelines. That's a bit like going to a networking event and not talking to anyone. So do you actually do you share your point of view, your expertise on LinkedIn, on social media?
It's fine to share someone else's YouTube video or TED Talk or article, but what's your take? People want to know your point of view. Professionally, I know what I stand for and take time to reflect on my unique perspective and share it externally.
So you might be thinking, oh, what does that mean? Well, what's your take on, what's the value you bring in the workplace? And do you take the time to share that expertise externally, whether it's at events? Oh, we've got one person out. Richard's out already. Sayonara, Richard. He's lurking on social media. That's the next step for you. Are you sharing your expertise externally, whether it is at a small business association, at the regular lunch session? Are you sharing your expertise in any way, or are you kind of keeping it to yourself?
And do you know what your unique perspective is? We get a lot of people that come to us and say, I really want to be a thought leader. And we say, great, what are your thoughts? What do you think? And they go, oh, I don't really know. Take some time to come up with your unique perspective.
Usually it's crickets when we ask that question. Number 5, I have written an article or blog. So this could be on your website. It could be in an industry publication. Have you shared your expertise via an article?
No, we've got a few more opting out here.
Sophie says all 5 of us are out. I'm out, not yet. Some social media challenges due to policies. I think I'm out at number 3. We'll keep going anyway, so you can start to see all the different ways you can be raising your profile. Number 6, I've been nominated for an award. I've nominated myself for an award, or I've received an award. So you can tick that one, Richard. Recently has received a couple of awards, I think.
Awards are a really great way to raise your profile, but even the process of applying for an award is a good way to really nut out your expertise. Why would I be up for an award? Why would anyone choose me? It's a really nice way to go through that process and say, well, these are my expertise, this is my experience, this is my unique perspective, and this is where I'm going. This is what the change that I want to make in the industry.
And it's a really visible signal externally that you are someone who has expertise and you know what you're talking about. When someone, a third party source, gives you an award, it says this person is an expert, and that influences the way people perceive you. So start thinking about some of the awards you could apply for, some of the lists, 40 under 40 in Adelaide. If we know we've got lots of people from Adelaide on here.
If I was asked to speak on a panel, I'd say yes. And I know what my key takeaways for my audience would be. Saying yes is a really important step. We've had so much experience with people saying, I got asked to be on a panel, but then I diverted them to my colleague who clearly would be better at that than me. No, say yes, and then work out what your take's going to be.
Number 8, I get asked to do podcast interviews and video interviews. So if you're someone who's sharing your expertise, you might then get asked to do these kind of things. And that's a great way to get your work in front of more people and become known for your ideas. Because as I always say, you can't become known for your ideas if you don't share any. Number 9, I use speaking, whether it's at events like this webinar, or holding lunch and learns for my team to make my expertise more visible to others. That's number 9. Hopefully someone's still with us.
We've got a few more people that haven't commented in the chats yet, so well done, team.
Number 10, I have written for publications online and offline in my field. This could be an industry publication, it could be a newsletter for a membership group that you're part of, or it could be maybe Forbes. Maybe Forbes are going to run an article from you, a really high profile international publication. Any publication externally, that's what we're talking about here.
The next one's a really fun one. And I encourage you, if you do have an answer to this, if you're still in the game, pop it in the comments so we know what it is. If I was asked to do a TED Talk tomorrow, I know what my topic would be. What would your TED Talk be? Even if you're out of the game, you can still comment because we'd be really interested to know.
Yeah. We do this exercise with people because it's a really good way to get clear on what your expertise is and what your message is. We know people that build global followings who are really influential. They have a message that they're sharing and they're really consistent with sharing that one message. So start thinking about what yours would be.
We've got no comments about TED Talk topics. Come on, guys. This is your first opportunity to share your expertise.
You are what you train, Marg.
Oh, hey, Marg. You are what you train. I like it.
And number 12, I have developed a concept for a book or had a book published. A book is a great way to share your expertise and to go a bit more deeper and to do the research. And it signals to the external market that you know what you are talking about, and it opens doors to huge opportunities. Anyone writing a book or has developed a concept for a book?
Penny's opted out at the book idea, but you do have a TED Talk idea. So I wonder if there's something in that. Why supporting local is so important. And my goodness, yes, it is, particularly in the current environment.
So important. So start to think about, Penny, how are you becoming known? How are you going to share that message and get that idea in front of more people? Because yeah, you're right. That's something that's absolutely needed right now.
Marg, You Are What You Train is a pretty good book title.
Yeah, it really is. I'd read that. Number 13, last one. I'm building an influential network of opinion makers because it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I would actually add another one to that, and it's who knows what you know.
Quite a tongue twister.
Anyone get 13 out of 13? We would love to meet you in the comments. Maybe send you a little something. No external industry publications from Melanie Mansfield.
You can work on that
we'll
now.
Think of some other options for you. I'm sure there are e-newsletters that are popping up in your inbox daily, HR type e-newsletters that you could be featured in. So it's just getting clear on all the different ways you could share your expertise.
So you can see that there's a plethora of ways that you can show up externally and present externally with your expertise, but you can also present your expertise internally. How do people within your organisation know what you're great at? How do they know what they need to come to you for?
So whether you got kind of 0 out of 13 or 13 out of 13, I don't want anyone to be downtrodden. I just want you to start to understand there are so many different ways that you can be becoming known for your expertise, building impact and influence, and that this is not a one and done type thing. This is something that you work on, for the rest of your career, because it's really important. I'd say if you got 0 out of 13, you're kind of the quiet achiever, hidden gem on this chart here. 1 to 3, you're in the kind of ramping up stages. 4 to 7, you're gaining traction. And if you got 8 to 13, I'd say you're heading into recognised expert status. So well done. We'd love to see everyone go from one end to the other.
So we're going to introduce you and run you through now our 5-step framework to becoming an influential and impactful leader. So these are the 5 steps that we work people through so you can go from hidden gem to someone who is known for what you do. And the first step is to uncover your leadership identity. So if you were going to be known for something, if people were going to really clearly recognize your personal brand and know what to expect from you, what might that look like? We always say to stop searching for your brand and start seeing it. All that you need is already there. It's not about curating something, it's already there, and we'll go through that shortly.
It's just leveraging your strengths and starting to own your voice.
So the second thing is to start sharing your work externally. This doesn't have to be a massive project. You're already doing the work. So it's just about letting people know about it. It's about pulling back the curtains.
I like to say it's like working out loud. So you're already doing this work. It's just starting to share it and make it a bit more visible.
And we've just listed through all of these ways that you can make that happen. We'll delve into that a little bit more deeply.
And just remember that no matter what you're working on right now, it's useful to someone else. So start treating this a bit like an experiment and sharing what you're working on, making it more visible.
Number 3 is to extend your reach. So we don't want to waste a lot of time curating this content and then not having it seen by anyone. So how can we amplify your message so that it's seen by more people? We'll go through that as well.
We're going to look at building meaningful relationships, how to build connections, how to reach out to people who can open doors for you. And we're going to introduce some kind of different strategic strategies to do that aren't just going along to your networking event.
And the last point is to lead yourself. You need to understand your brain and treat this like a bit of a game, like an experiment. It can be really challenging, like I said before, to put yourself out there. In fact, we ran our Impact and Influence program last Friday, and we had this really interesting experience where one of the members in the room, we only had 7 in the room because of the COVID restrictions, which is a really nice group. So this lady, CEO of a nonprofit, was sitting at the table and we were having these very open discussions. It was toward the end of the day, and we hit them with a pop-up panel where there were 3 stools up there and they needed to move to one where they were sitting onto a stool. And as soon as she got up and moved to that stool, she said, oh my goodness, now suddenly I'm just talking from a different spot. My heart's racing and I can't concentrate and I'm feeling really stressed out. We know this isn't natural. We know that it triggers some fear responses in your body. So we will go into that a little bit as well. So how do you get yourself through that so that you can start actually showing up and sharing your expertise without feeling utterly terrified? And this is what that can look like.
Hi, so my name is Bridie Walker and I'm a PT who thinks that we need to stop focusing so much on exercise or working out. I think that we have all kept weight loss as this focus and this main driver of success, or this kind of jewel in the crown of success for women, and we're all drowning in shoulds constantly and overwhelmed. I always think back to that photo that we all have in our 20s where we're thin and hot and fresh-faced and fun, and we didn't see it then and we're not seeing it now. And when are we going to see it if we don't take time to stop and look? Hi, so mine.
Pretty great, right? So the reason that we're sharing this video is that Bridie was in one of our Impact and Influence programs, which is a 2-day program about raising your profile and getting recognised for your expertise. And at the start of that program, no one in the room thinks, I definitely should be here and I know exactly what my message is and I'm feeling so confident about this and so clear about this. They go through a process and then at the end we get a videographer in and they're able to film videos like this. That it's important for you to know that even if right now you're thinking, I don't know if this is for me and I don't know if I'm going to be able to share what I know and who wants to hear from me, that is completely normal. But what we know about the brain is that it's capable of change and we can ingrain the habits and the processes that we need to in order to be able to start doing this more naturally and more comfortably. So if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable about it, that's completely okay. And hopefully by the end of this half an hour, you're going to start feeling a bit more clear about that. Now, I don't think you're going to do this because we're telling you to do this. In fact, I know that. And I don't think you're going to do it because your boss is telling you to do it either. There's a really great book by Daniel Pink called Drive, and he talks about what makes us intrinsically motivated. And these are the 3 things that are going to actually make you stand out and get this stuff done. And that is autonomy, the ability to use your own smarts and your own creativity to get something done. Mastery, the ability to grow and get better. And purpose, you're doing it for a reason. So we always say, don't think about yourself and, you know, what will people think of me if I start sharing this? Start thinking about why it's important for you to share the message that you've got. Who needs to hear from you? And what change are you trying to create within your workplace or within the world? What's broken in your industry? What are you trying to fix? What's broken in your workplace? What can you influence? What difference can you make? When you really hook into those things, that's when you're going to start to drive yourself along to be able to show up, to push through the fear.
Well said.
And you are going to do this far more easily when you're doing it as yourself. You don't need to curate some kind of personal brand. All that you need, you already have. And we've got some really great examples out there publicly at the moment of people doing just that. And a great one is Jacinda Ardern. So we have come to know what to expect from Jacinda. She has been so consistent with her brand because she's not making it up. She recently, during the COVID outbreak, actually put her little girl to bed. She was sitting there in her trackies and she did a Facebook Live just saying, hey guys, hit me with your questions. Let me know what I can help you with. She's got this really down-to-earth personal brand. And the lovely thing is that she hasn't had to make any of it up. We were talking last week about what if suddenly Jacinda came out and completely flipped her style. What if she came out and suddenly said, there's nothing to see here, we've got it all under control, everything's fine. If she took more of probably a Donald Trump
yeah, I was going to say
approach,
something like Donald Trump.
If she suddenly did that, what would that do to the level of trust? So we've built this trust and rapport with Jacinda because we know what to expect from her. She shows up consistently. If she suddenly changed or dropped out of character, the trust that she's built up until now would be completely diminished. And that's why it's important that you uncover your unique leadership identity and show up as yourself, because you need to be able to do it consistently and you need to be able to continue to give people what they expect, because the minute that drops off is the minute that you lose trust, and trust is utterly important, particularly in current environment.
And so what we're saying is it's not actually about you coming to this webinar and kind of creating this brand and you're going to be this other kind of different person. You just need to kind of channel and own your strengths and your unique value and be more authentic. That's the thing that is going to make you memorable, likable, trustworthy. That's the thing that's going to give that is going to attract attention and build a following.
There's something that we do throughout our careers, and it's we look around us and we see the people that are in the positions that we might want one day, and we start to add these layers to ourselves. I think I need to show up like this in order to be in that position. So we're layering to the point where we don't actually know what our unique take is. And if I was to show up at work and strip back those layers, what would that look like? And would that be okay? It can feel kind of terrifying, right? But I can tell you that you're going to do your best work when you do that. Stop trying to do your version of someone else. You do your best version of yourself, and you're going to have a lot more success in that area.
And this is important in the current environment, particularly because all the research is showing that the voice of influence is changing. We are trusting these more authentic, relatable voices. Like her or not, Greta Thunberg is one of those examples. She has a very relatable voice, and the research is showing that people trust her and are following her. People like her are going to change the world, and they've got more influence than the traditional influencers, senior leaders, government, media, than they traditionally have.
People no longer trust brands and organisations. People trust people. This is why we're encouraging the people to step out from behind the brands and to share your message.
People want to hear it.
And this is the way that you can do it. So what happens when people aren't feeling particularly confident, or maybe they're trying to prove themselves, is they trying to be a jack of all trades. They say yes to everything, and they do as much as they possibly can in order to get recognised for what they do. But that's a little kind of sideways from what we're encouraging you to do here. We really want you to immerse yourself in a topic area and become a specialist. Lean into what you care about and what you do well, and become really great at that thing. And then surround yourself with people who have interests and skills in different areas so that they can kind of fill the gaps. So what is it that you would be known for? What's your one thing? If someone needed someone in a particular area, or if there was, I did this recently, I put up a LinkedIn post asking for recommendations on a particular topic. How can you make sure that it's your name that's getting thrown into the comments by people?
If you're a generalist, your name is not going to come up. So what do you want to double down on? As an example, I have been interested in this space for a while, and how we can activate individual leaders to be raising their profile, to be out there and building the brand messages. And I spoke to the CEO I was working with at the time, and I pitched this expertise to her, and I said, I think this is a missed opportunity. She then said, I want you to run 4 separate leadership development training sessions with my team. That then led to, with her senior leadership team, that then led to me then consulting for one of Australia's major banks. If I hadn't had that conversation with her and made that expertise known, these opportunities wouldn't have come about. So when you start owning your expertise, it's a little bit like a pebble in a pond, creates a ripple effect. You start to become known for this thing, and doors start opening up. So what do you want to become known for? Brene Brown's a really good example. She talks about shame, vulnerability, a lack of courage in the workplace, and she sticks to those key themes, and she is well known globally for those topics.
Now, we're not saying that you need to pick one thing now and then you're locked into that for the rest of your life. I said earlier, let's play with this. Let's experiment a little bit. The point is, choose a thing, go deep on that for a bit, and then just see how it pans out for you. You might start deviating off course a little bit, but just go for it. Just start.
Yeah. So you might be a marketing manager, and you're going to have to be quite generalist in what you do in your role. But that's not to say you couldn't become known as a customer journey specialist. Or Penny, for example, could be known as a marketing manager who helps amplify local organisations to help support local companies. So think about what you want to become a specialist in. The next step is to start sharing it. A lot of people overthink content. When we talk about building a personal brand, raising your profile, they think, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. Not really, because you're doing this work anyway. It's just about starting to work out loud. So here's how I kind of got started. The first thing I did was speak to a women's networking group on the Fleurieu Peninsula. I knew that this group was running and that they had experts come in. I connected with the lady who organised the events. She said, you've got a lot of expertise to share. I'd love you to come and run a session. Baby steps, people. I went there, I talked to them for half an hour, I shared what I know, and that then kind of was like a domino. I started doing other things, running lunch and learns at my place of work, upskilling my colleagues, making my expertise more visible to others so that I could start unlocking some of these opportunities that would then give me more control over my career.
So we really like you to take something tangible and implementable away from our sessions at The Edge. I want you to write down something for me. If you were to run a lunch and learn or a webinar for your audience, what would your topic be? So write that down. What would it be? Would it be a lunch and learn? Would it be a webinar or some kind of other platform? What would your topic be? And if you actually go ahead and implement that, I want you to email us and let us know.
We'll send you a special something. And if you're thinking, I don't know what I would talk about at a lunch and learn, remember that your expertise is like second nature to you. It feels really obvious, but it's not obvious to other people. So think about what are the things people come to you for? And they say, hey, I really need your advice on this. You're really good at this. What's an experience you've had, a story you can tell that might be really relevant to help others right now?
Bonus point for popping it in the comments so we can see what you're going to do.
So just start working out loud, making more of a contribution, sharing what you do externally.
Riskware, Mark. But is that what you want to be sharing, or is that just happening to be what you're needing to share next?
Kimberly says, what was her name? That was great. Can't remember what we were. Prompt us again. Not sure.
Sorry, Kimberly, we've forgotten what we were just talking about, clearly.
Get so excited about this stuff. The next thing is to start, as I said before, start sharing externally what you're working on. One way to do this is by simply tell stories from your work life on LinkedIn. Bridget is a really good example of this. She has gained a huge following on LinkedIn. You can see here she's got over 6,000 comments on this post. And her tactic is really just to use storytelling. We know that people don't remember facts, they remember stories. So what stories can you tell? Let's kind of break down why this post is working for her and why she's being really successful on LinkedIn. I'll read you the post. She says, my employee resigned. She left to start her own business. This is what I told her. Thank you for all your wonderful contributions. I hate to see you go, but I'm so excited for you. And I would like to congratulate you on this new chapter. I wish you every success. And then she asks, why is it that when someone resigns, they are treated like an enemy? And here she shares her point of view. When an employee resigns, thank them for their contributions, treat them with respect, wish them all the best. Life is too short, be happy for others and happiness will surround you. Agree? ? She's used a few tactics there. Storytelling, which we know is powerful. She's sharing her point of view and she's asked a question at the end. Do you agree or do you disagree? And 6,000 people have chimed in the comments. And all she did was tell a story from her work day. How can you share and start working out loud, share what's going on for you so that you give people a chance to follow you, but also engage in a conversation about it. What she wrote there is not actually rocket science, but it's really powerful.
Just opening up the chat function here to have a look.
Oh, it was Bridie?
Oh, Bridie, yeah.
Brene Brown?
Bridie Walker. She Moves is her business.
As an employee, how do I contribute to this business is the lunch and learn topic. It's a great topic.
I like it. Very cool. And the next thing is to extend your reach by making your expertise relevant. There's nothing I hate more than wasting time. And I really don't like seeing people spending hours and hours creating articles and blogs that are just not getting seen. The reason I particularly don't like that is because I've done a lot of it myself. A good few years ago, I would write an article that I spent heaps and heaps of time on. I'd whack it up on my LinkedIn or I'd whack it up on my blog and no one would see it. And it was so frustrating to me. And then Amy started letting me in on some of these little tweaks and little tactics that went from getting my article seen by maybe 10, 100 people to getting in front of hundreds of thousands of people by putting it on a platform that my audience were reading. So there was this one particular article that I did that I think is a really great example. I spent a lot of time talking about well-being in the workplace, which I think is really important to lead yourself first before you're showing up externally or showing up in the workplace. And all I did was Amy rang me one day and said, Jacinda Ardern's about to announce a wellbeing budget and you need to get on it. You need to post something about this because the media outlets are going to be looking for it. They're actually looking for content. You're not annoying them by giving them something. You're giving them a gift. Oh, thank goodness. I was looking for something and here it is. It's landed on my lap. And the way that I made that relevant was to just attach what I already had been writing about to the wellbeing budget. Jacinda Ardern paves the way. Well, why all small business owners need a wellbeing budget. Amy wrote an entry kind of paragraph
Just
for me. Just top and tailed it to make it relevant to that particular topic. And then I just put the same tips that I'd been sharing before. It got picked up by Women's Agenda, by Business Chicks, and by smart companies. And then I posted it up on my LinkedIn as well, which shows you don't need the external platforms if you don't want to, as long as you've hooked it into something relevant, because you can see my own LinkedIn post here has 218 comments and it's had over almost 6,000 interactions. So if you have this particular content or expertise, start looking for opportunities, things that are happening in the here and now that you can link that up to. And that is a really, really good tip to get your work seen, because you don't want to waste too much time. I know that you're really busy. So make it have some impact, amplify your message wherever you can. And if you go into websites like Women's Agenda or whatever your relevant industry topic is, they actually have ways that you can pitch to them. They'll tell you how to pitch your ideas to them. So you can follow that method and then just get it in there and see how you go.
The thing that Tamsin left out is that she was on her way to the Riverland. She had her 2 little boys with her and she was about to run a full day workshop. And she said to me, I haven't got time, Amy. I've probably got half an hour max. I said, you can do it. And she sent the kids, her mum took the kids to the playground and she quickly wrote this article repurposing stuff she already knew. It's all in that head of hers. Got it down on the page and we got it out the door and seen by so many people. And the benefits to you out of this have been huge. You've been asked to speak. You've been paid lots of money to speak. You've just the caliber of the people reaching out to you.
Because people are looking for someone to reach out to. So present yourself there, right? Put yourself on the platform. And the reason that I could is because I was just talking about the stuff that I'm interested in, the stuff that I've spent the last, 5 years researching heavily. It's already there. You've already got it. Whatever it is that's in your head is useful for someone else. So just get it out there.
And make your expertise more relevant. What is going on right now? What are people talking about? What's in the media? What's getting a lot of traction on LinkedIn? And how can you use that to make your expertise more relevant? We work with a client who takes a really innovative and strategic approach to networking. So he doesn't just go to networking events and have a nice wine and leave. He's really serious because he's worked out his why and he's got a bigger mission. So when he goes to networking events, he goes in with a list of people he wants to connect with and how he can add value to them. He also has, separate to that, a list of Adelaide's most 100 influential people, according to him. So he's written a list who he thinks has the most influence in Adelaide, and he is working through that list to see how he can connect with each of those people. Pretty impressive, right? Do you think he's going to be successful or not? Let me tell you, he is incredibly successful. And he's not just going to them and spamming them and asking them for something. He understands that the currency of networking is generosity. So he's giving, not taking. He's opening doors for them and then they're reciprocating and opening doors for him. So when we want you to think about building a meaningful network and building relationships, the first thing is to think, who am I actually trying to influence? And what's important to them right now? So write down, while you're here, write down 3 people that could really open doors for you and get you closer to your goal. And then think, well, how could I help them? How could I add some value? What's going on for them right now? How might I be able to assist them? We've made some connections with some really influential people just by simply offering them something first and trying to unpack what's important to them.
Just remember, don't be afraid to stretch yourself. You know, if there's a person that you've got in your head, the first person that popped into your head, you thought, oh my gosh, I'd never reach out to them. They are just human beings who probably like conversation and like sharing their expertise as well. They might want the opportunity to have a bit of a chat with someone. We actually gain more ourselves when we give to other people. So don't be afraid to really stretch yourself and reach out to that scary person.
And then earn their attention. So don't just kind of spray and pray and send an email to 100 people. Tailor the request, write it really thoughtfully. How can you reach out to them on LinkedIn and say, I listened to you on this podcast and I love what you said about this, and I'm also passionate about that. Tailor your outreach, make it really personalized to them, and offer them some value, offer them something, and they'll probably help you too. The problem is we know what to do. We've just ran you through quite a few things that you can be doing to become known for your expertise, to kind of take a bit more control of your career. But the problem is most people are ostriches, right? They've got their heads buried in the sand on this stuff. They are kind of lurking on LinkedIn, as we said earlier. They're not really making much of a network. They're not worried about social proof. They're just relying on their performance. When we work with clients, we like to take them from the ostrich end of the scale over to Jacinda, someone who knows what they stand for. They are so confident. They know what they bring to their work. They're fulfilled. They're memorable. They've got a powerful network of people around them who can open doors for them.
It can be really hard, and I think probably almost impossible when you're living in ostrich land, which was me, 8 years ago or so, to picture what it would even look like to be in Jacinda territory. To be able to go from ostrich to Jacinda is a pretty big jump. So what I want you to focus on is what tiny steps along the way can I just start taking? What's my first step? You don't need to be able to see the path in front of you in order to take it. You need to take your first steps, and then the path is going to unfold.
This work is actually making your work visible. It's particularly unnatural for women. I know we've got quite a few men on this webinar, and we very much welcome you here today, but we did want to make the note that women in particular, research has shown, understand that this is important, right? They know that visibility is a way to advance their career. The research has shown this from Stanford. They know it's important, yet they are preferring to reject that strategy and instead take up what's called intentional invisibility. So that's what the researchers have called it, and that's what the research has shown, that women understand it, that they're rejecting it, and they're preferring to hide. The reasons for that, according to the research, were they're scared of a backlash from their colleagues. They're juggling family life, and they think, well, why me?
So if any of that was ringing true to you, which, I think commonly most of us would be putting our hands up. So yeah, it is kind of scary to put yourself out there. I want you to know that confidence is about influence and perspective. It's about influencing yourself, and it's about the story that you're telling yourself about the opportunity that is presented to you. Confidence is not some kind of gene that you've got or you don't have. Some people might appear more confident, but confidence is not about being the loudest person in the room. It is about having this inner peace and calm with who you are and the message that you're going to share. And there are some ways that you can set this up for yourself. But I gave you the story before about the person last week who was in the Impact and Influence program, who went from the seat to the stool and suddenly had this massive reaction in her body. So let's break that down a little bit. But first, I just want to tell you what we ask of people in the Impact and Influence program that we think that you can carry out from here and take with you into your day. Influential thought leaders think differently. They let go of what will people think of me, and they lean into who will benefit from me sharing. They let go of perfectionism and just wanting to get everything right, and they just take action. We say it's data gathering, right? You take action, you learn what works, you learn what doesn't, and then you just keep moving forward and applying what you know. You let go of the need for certainty, and you move into thinking, I'm either going to win here and succeed and get the outcome that I want, or I'm going to learn so that I can apply the knowledge and then get the outcome that I want later. Let go of comparison, what's everyone else doing, and lean into courage and creativity. Remember that we're not asking you to be your best version of someone else. We're wanting you to lean into the best version of yourself. Let go of self-doubt and scarcity and move into focusing on your strengths. And this is going to help set up the right chemicals within your brain to help you to be able to push yourself forward. So what is happening here? We're wanting you to move from your comfort zone out into the rapid growth zone. It's not just about slightly stretching your comfort zone. It's about obliterating your comfort zone and pitching yourself, pitching your ideas, putting your hand up, sitting on a panel. And we get that that can be extremely scary. We're not trying to say that it isn't. We still get nervous before we present. In fact, we were using these techniques before we jumped on this webinar so that we could be able to show up with confidence and calm about what we're doing here. It does not come naturally. So don't worry about it if you don't feel like it's natural, because that's completely normal. But with practice and with using these techniques, you can get yourself into the rapid growth zone. You can push forward, and then that comfort zone is going to continue to expand. So what felt scary before to you won't feel as scary next time. So what was happening to that person who went from the sitting position up onto the stool?
She moved 2 meters,
2
by the
meters.
way.
Same group of people, same topic, different chair. So what we know about the brain is that physical and social or emotional threats are the same. What does that mean? That means for most of us, or for many of us, walking down that dark alley, being followed by a person potentially with a knife, is the same to the brain and will have the same effects as potentially standing behind that microphone and needing to talk to a room full of people. Physical threats and the thought of being excluded socially or making a fool of ourselves socially are the same to the brain. The same chemical reaction happens.
No wonder people hate this.
I know, right? But there are some workarounds. So here's what happens. When we are confronted with the prospect of sharing our expertise externally, we're thinking that maybe we're going to get excluded from the tribe. We just want to belong, because back in the cavemen days, we've got the same brain as we did back then, it's just evolved slightly. If we were excluded from the group, we're probably going to die, because we need the people around us. We need to belong. So when we step up on stage and that is at threat, it triggers the base of the brain here, the limbic system, the 2 almond-shaped nodes called the amygdala at the base of the brain get triggered. And it starts this chemical process that sends our body into the fight-flight response. And what you'll find is you might get an increase of adrenaline, and your heart rate is starting to pump and your pupils dilate, and we get laser focused, and your energy goes from the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive functioning part of our brain that makes us human, the ability to critically think. The energy goes away from there and it goes to the caveman brain, to the part of the brain that just wants to survive. So we can't function in the way that we want to, but we can kind of hijack that process. We can use that excess energy to just perform highly. A little bit of fear is good. We just need to be able to hijack that process a little bit so that we can maintain more energy at the prefrontal cortex and put that kind of caveman brain to sleep a little bit. And we can do this in a couple of ways. I'm going to give you some really practical techniques here, and this is based on the work of Amy Cuddy. There's a TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, which I really encourage you to look up if you haven't seen it. And it's all about kind of power posing. So it's using your body's chemistry to reverse engineer the process, and you can actually make your brain chemicals give you more confidence by using your body's stance. And what she's found by using these, what she calls power poses, is that we can actually change the chemistry within our bodies, within our brains, so that we're feeling more confident. We can increase testosterone and we can decrease cortisol, the stress hormone. And I'm not just going to tell you about this, I actually want to show you what that feels like. So wherever you are, if you're in the office, you can still do this. If you can't stand up like Wonder Woman in the middle of the office, that's okay. I'll give you 2 different options. So I want you to do this one thing first. I want you to close your body language as much as possible. So if you're sitting in a chair right now, I want you to cross your legs over. I want you to cross your arms over. And I just want you to look down and try and smile. And just do that for a second and just see how that feels. So that pose in itself is changing your chemistry the wrong way. So you're actually going to increase your cortisol, you're going to decrease your testosterone, you're going to feel less confident and less happy. Did anyone feel that? So let's do the opposite now. I want you to get into one of these power poses. Now, if you're sitting down and you can't stand up, it depends on how far you're willing to stretch it. But if you want to just pop your feet up and stand back in the chair with your arms on your head, you can do that. If you are not quite that confident, then you can just sit up tall, chin up, hands on your hips, and you can do that standing even better. So chin up, hands on your hips, legs shoulder width apart. Do that for me. Take a deep breath and smile. And I want you to know the difference.
Tamsin was doing this about an hour ago.
Literally. So Amy Cuddy's work, Amy Cuddy and her team found out that when people do this, they really do get this change in their body, an increase in testosterone, a decrease in cortisol, stress hormone. And this is an ideal confidence cocktail. Without changing anything else, you can actually make yourself feel and look more confident, which is really, really useful. The other thing is, I said before that confidence is about influence and it's about perspective. And this is when you start influencing yourself. We started influencing ourselves physically, and now we can start influencing ourselves mentally. We also had a conversation during this session last week with someone who was trying to come up with what her strengths were. And all she could think about was the gaps. All she could think about was the things that she wasn't going to do well. And you might find yourself when you're in this situation where you're about to talk to a group of people that you might be thinking, what if I mess up? What if people don't like me? What if I'm not good enough? What about all those things that I don't know? And you're taking yourself down the garden path. You've been triggered into that fight-flight response. And then the story that you're telling yourself is keeping yourself in that fight-flight response. It's just taking you further down the rabbit hole. So tune into the story that you're telling yourself. We said to her, you're a leader, right? So if your team comes in the morning, someone in your team walks in the door, and you immediately start telling them all of the things that they're not good at, all of your gaps, we're just going to fire them at you one by one by one by one by one. How would that make them feel? You just wouldn't do it, right? Because you know that that's not going to get the best out of that person. So why on earth do we do that to ourselves? It's ridiculous, isn't it? So knowing that is the first step. How can you get around that? First is to acknowledge it. This is a really natural thing for your brain to do. So don't beat yourself up over it. We talk about self-sabotage. Your brain is not trying to sabotage you. We found out before that your brain is trying to keep you alive. It's trying to do the right thing. It's trying to keep you in the pack. So acknowledge it, give your self-talk a bit of a nod and think, okay, that's all right. I know what you're trying to do here, but I really want to do this because I've got my purpose. I've got my reason for doing it. Say thanks, but no thanks. And then you want to shift your perspective. You want to start thinking not about what will they think of me and am I good enough and all of the things that you don't do well, but you might start thinking about what a wonderful opportunity to share my ideas. This is an exciting game. How fun might it be to actually just go sit up on a panel and have a chat? I know how to talk, right? Start thinking about who's going to benefit from hearing what you've got to say. And then reframe. So your reframing is an opportunity to communicate your message. I've actually given you something because I know that this is difficult. This is an opportunity to share my message and get the outcome I want. I'm going to use my nerves and stress as fuel to increase my neurological capability and perform highly. Do you think that you can write that one down and just try giving that to yourself instead next time that you're going to put yourself out there and speak externally?
If you think about it, that feeling of being nervous and feeling of being excited are very similar feelings. So if we find ourselves getting a bit nervous, a bit scared, we just try and switch it to we're excited, this is going to be fun. We reframe it for ourselves.
I've heard someone say before, and I really wish I knew who it was so that I could let you know, but they said fear is just excitement without the breath. So if you're feeling really scared and nervous about something and you take a deep breath, you can kind of start to switch it to excitement if you're using the right self-talk. I think it's a really cool tool.
And next thing is to remember that there are people less qualified than you doing the things you want to do. simply because they decided to move past fear and believe in themselves. We love this quote because it is so true. The people who are recognized, the people who are getting access to opportunities, they aren't special. They don't have something that you don't. They just decided to overcome fear, move past it, and believe in themselves and back themselves and start sharing, start working out loud. So quick recap of what we've learnt today before we wrap up, and we're happy to take questions in a minute. But, you know, uncover your leadership identity. This is not about searching for this brand, fabricating anything. It's just, you just got to start seeing who you are, your strengths, what you bring to your organisation, and really leaning into that, leverage that. The next is to start working out loud. Just start sharing. Take that first step. Extend your reach. Look for opportunities to get your voice, get your ideas, your message, your expertise in front of more people. Start small with a lunch and learn with 3 of your colleagues. That's really a visible way to signal to others that you're an expert.
Maybe start researching the platforms that people that are your audience are reading or consuming. Where are they hanging out, and how can you get yourself there?
Baby steps. Build meaningful relationships. Who could really open doors for you career-wise, professionally, and how can you help them first? And then finally, as Tamsin just talked about, leading yourself and understanding how the brain works. Changing that mental soundtrack that happens when you're about to do something that's scary and going, actually, no, I can do this.
I think if you take nothing else out of that process, it's that what you think and feel is completely normal. It's a normal process that your brain throws out to try and keep you safe. So once you recognize that and you learn how to deal with that, then you can just let it go and just push forward, because you are not the only one. We're all human beings. We all go through that stuff. We're all telling ourselves that we're not good enough a whole lot of the time. So the next thing is that we've actually created a platform where you can start sharing your expertise. We know not everyone's got thousands of dollars to blow on professional development.
Particularly in this climate.
It'd be really lovely if we all did, but the fact is that we all don't. So let's just dabble for a little bit. We've created a club called the Edge Insiders. We've actually let the people within that group have an opportunity to get interviewed with us into the group and start sharing your expertise. Really great opportunity. We've had people that we've worked with in the past have generally been in that group. So this group's existed for a couple of years now, and they've been sharing their expertise within the group. So if you come in, you can put your hand up and we can interview you and can have a bit of a practice in a really non-threatening way.
You also get access to experts in their field through monthly Q&As with them. Here's some that we've had recently and some that are coming up in the next month. We're speaking to neuroscientists, we're speaking to journalists, we spoke to an economist recently, finance experts, networking gurus, because we know there's so much expertise out there, and we don't think professional development these days should just be that you go to an event once every 3 months and you have a wine and a cheese and you go home. There's got to be more fun ways to develop ourselves and to start practicing our sharing our expertise in a really safe way. Non-scary way.
And the great thing that you can do is if you go into the group and you watch these interviews, you can start to identify then what techniques they're using that you've already learnt about here. So when are they using stories? When have they hooked into something real and relevant in the news cycle? And you can start seeing that in action, picking it out, and then playing it with it yourself. So we encourage you to come in and join us in that group. It's $15 a month. And we think it's a really exciting thing to be a part of. We want people to continue on their development journeys. We want to give people really accessible, fun, fresh way to communicate with experts, two-way conversation. So jump in and join.
Love to see you in there. I thought before we go to questions, I just finished with closing the loop on the story. I told you about how I was made redundant at the start, and what would it look like if I was now made redundant tomorrow? Well, I've put into practice all these things that we've been talking about today, and I'm in a very different position now than I was back in 2015. I've got an established network that I could fall back on and leverage quickly. So I wouldn't have to put up a LinkedIn post that says, I'm looking for work, and to start competing with hundreds of thousands of other people. I could start leveraging existing opportunities straight away. Now I consult for, as I said, major Australian banks. So I would be able to continue doing that. I'm no longer reliant on one employer. I've got more control of my career, and that's because I have diversified what I'm doing. I've leaned into my expertise, and I've really started to work out loud. And what we're saying to you today is you can do the same. You can future-proof yourself as well. And I don't think there's a more important time to be doing this, to be honest.
Now, if you do have any questions, just pop them into the Q&A section, and we are more than happy to answer any questions that you've got. Otherwise, we will just begin to wrap up. But thanks so much for sharing your time with us. We know that time is a very precious resource, particularly at the moment. So thank you for giving it to us, and we hope that you gain some value out of that little webinar.
Looks like there's a question. Takes us a second to open them up. Sorry, guys.
This is actually not going to open up.
Technology has worked quite well until now.
I'm just going to stop the screen share and see if that's going to help us here. Here we go. Rich, hey, who do we email to speak to about joining the group? hello@theedgepr.com.
We're actually sending an email today with the link, and we'll also we can put the link here in the chat as well to join as well.
Look forward to seeing you in there, Rich.
So much expertise to share.
No worries, Carolyn. Thank you.
Good reframe comment to read out loud. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Pay yourself first as a lunch topic. Looking forward to hearing more about that.
Maybe that can be your interview in the Edge Insiders, Rich.
Yeah, exactly. And then imagine if you became known as this, as a finance guru, as a broker that has this message. You start getting invited to speak at conferences around the world to share that message. Lauren says, thank you for sharing. I really enjoyed listening to you. Lovely ladies, very inspirational. That is very kind. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you. We're getting hit with lots of love. So thanks, guys. Any more questions, pop them in. Otherwise, we will wrap it up and say goodbye. I reckon that's it. This is your opportunity to put yourself out there, put your hand up.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up there, hey? Thank you so much for spending your time with us. If you've got any questions, of course, that you don't want to put on the group here, hit us with an email. We are always open to two-way conversations. Thanks, so. All right.
Everyone was nodding along.
We will end it there. Thank you so much. See ya. Thanks, Lisa.